I recently spoke to Mark Abram, who's written a couple of amazing best-selling product books about how do you really influence people when you have no direct authority over them. I think you'll enjoy it.
So safe space and psychological safety, a lot of companies talk about them and some of them are great, but I think in that respect, others don't necessarily understand what it means or, the full extent of really creating a safe environment. And one of the things I talk about in the book is, and this is particularly relevant to product managers, is influencing without authority. We talk about product managers, CEO of the product and leading a team. But the reality is that as product managers, we need to take a lot of people on a journey, people that we don't have any kind of formal authority over. So how do you do that? How do you influence people without authority? And how do you create that safe space? And for me, it all comes down to trusted relationships. And that has been one of my key learnings. Because two learnings I've had, and again, I can show you the scars later on, is that how you build those relationships and that trusted relationships and what they're not. So let's start with what they're not. So trusted relationships is not that everyone needs to be your best friend and you always have to be nice to each other. Equally, that's not psychological safety, right? But you have to build a relationship that's based on mutual trust. And the reason why I wasn't very good at that at the start of my career was I would come in as a bulldozer, and there were two mistakes I made basically, and I don't know if they will resonate with yourself or your listeners, but I came in with a lot of opinions, and I wasn't afraid to express those opinions, and maybe I'd like to think some of them were useful and based on some evidence. But the other critical mistake I made, and I still have to really keep myself honest that I do this every single day in every interaction, is listening. So I would literally come in as a bulldozer into a new team or a new organization or working with someone I've worked with before, and I'd be very quick to say what I think was wrong or wasn't working or come up with a suggestion without really taking the time to understand where the other person is coming from. And you might think, well, Mark, isn't that obvious? But that's one of the first things I've noticed that goes when you're working, particularly when you work in that kind of environment you described earlier, when there's a lot of competing pressures, we're scaling, it's all exciting, it's all go, we're still finding our feet as a product organization. So taking the time for every interaction, for every person that you're engaging with, really understanding what is important to this other person. I learned a lot, and I write about this in the book as a practical tool called Influencing Without Authority. And there's the use of currencies. So basically, like you go to a foreign country and you need to get a different currency. Same works with building these trusted relationships. They're based on currencies that matter to the people involved. And there's a few groups of those currencies. So I'll give you an example. There's a currency around kind of tasks. So some people I work with really value anything you can do to help them complete a task. That could be unblocking them, providing a relevant bit of information, writing a detailed user story. That's what they care about. So if I know that about that person, I would use that to build a trusted relationship. Equally, I've worked with people who care a lot about vision. So they really, they struggle to function or do a good job if they don't understand why we're doing something or why we're not doing something, where we're taking the product or what good looks like.